Welcome to the World Sim Series RingFreaks esports championship here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. We had some small technical difficulties with the audio, but we're back to live action. We're here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife where Jan Nims has taken pole position ahead of Toras Gudunavicius and Mangano. Together with me here today, Lorinas, and I think we're in for a couple of incredible races.
I hope so. The first round was really incredible, but this one should be something really different because these slow power but lots of grip producing Mazdas should give us some nice action. And actually the qualifying session already promises that. Jan Nims had a really good run with a lap time of 9 minutes and 55. Second fastest was his main rival, Toras Gudunavicius. And then we have quite a tight gap. Not all the participants managed to put in a lap time. So I'm pretty sure there will be a lot of action in the upcoming two races.
The big name missing from the front is Matas Mendelis, winner of race 2 last time out. He hasn't set a quali lap again, so he's gonna have an interesting run through the field. This should be a little bit easier than the Porsche Cup cars. In the Porsche Cup car, you really have only those 4 or 5 spots where you can overtake someone safely. If you take more risk, there are more spots around the track, but those 4 or 5 spots are the main ones. In the MX5, I think you can pretty much try and send it anywhere. Looking through the field, well, Jan Nims, 2 seconds on pole. That is a big advantage, maybe bigger than the guys would have wanted. And especially compared to what he had in the Porsche Cup, where he had a horrible race. But remember, in this championship, you do have that drop round. And I guess Jan Nims is hoping round 1 will be his drop round. We're soon going to switch over to the race and to the grid.
Yep, so the final participant just completed his lap time, and guess who that was? It was Matas Mendelis, and he managed to put in a lap time which is worth of 7th spot, so that's definitely better than starting from the back of the pack. 10 minutes 3 seconds, that's 8 seconds slower, actually round 8 seconds slower than the fastest lap time of the qualifying session put in by Jan Nims, but it maybe proves that the guys are overdriving a little bit with these slow vehicles. Maybe it's a little bit easier with those Porsches where you have your braking points and you have to be precise, and you kind of want to extract all the available time from these slow cars, which maybe puts the drivers into more mistakes.
Well, you still have to think of this as not a standard track. So if you've got a lap time of 10 minutes, while a normal track that these cars would race at, you're going to have a lap time of around 1 minute 40 to 2 minutes. So the gap is actually much smaller than 8 seconds. On a normal track, we'd see probably 1.5 to 2. It's still a big gap, but there's so many spots on this track to lose that lap time, and especially considering that he said it so late on in the session, I think there may have been the fact that he was just trying to get a lap in. But we have got the lights now on. We're waiting for the 5 lights. Standing starts again, just like with the Porsche Cups. Jan Nims on pole, Gudunavicius on the front row with him. And we go for 2 laps of the always incredible Nürburgring Nordschleife. Jan Nims, well, definitely they are much slower on the TV cameras compared to the Porsche Cup cars, but down into turn 1, it's going to be a slipstream festival all the way down to turn 1. Toras Gudunavicius trying to make a move, but no, holds on for the moment. I guess the strategy here today is stay behind someone, ride up until the bridge down to Dottingoa, and then try to make the move on the last lap.
Should be
probably
a better strategy than it was with the Porsches last week. We've seen that the slipstream didn't work so well. That should be another case in these slower vehicles, I assume. At least that's what some of the drivers were assuming. for this race. Taurus Gudnavic was quite close to the end of Jan Nims, and actually right after the start, Jan Nims was kind of a defensive, and I thought he was a little bit too aggressive, like wiggling from side to side. Maybe it was just the way it looked like from my perspective. It's a shame we don't have replay system on the original Assetto Corsa title, but anyways, the race is on, and Taurus Gudnavic is right on the tail, so just showing Jan Nims that the slower lap time of the qualifying session doesn't mean a thing. And Taurus Gudnavic is the freshly baked 3 times EBA TCC champion. The championship was held in those BMW 325 Cup cars, which are slow, so a little bit similar to these Mazdas. So Taurus Gudnavic should be quite hot in that seat, and is already aggressive, taking some moves on Jan Nims, maybe not willing to wait till that final straight side by side.
It's very early to try and make the moves, but I guess he knows what happened to Jan Nims. As soon as Jan Nims had pressure last time out, he made a few mistakes that just destroyed both of his races. So maybe he's just trying to apply a little psychological pressure. I guess it is easier to save a mistake in the Mazda, just because you're coming into the turn much slower. Looking through the rest of the field, Justinas Lucas in P3, well, he's kind of dropped off that slipstream margin. Matas Mendelis in P7, so he's gone up a spot, I believe, but it's still not that. No, he stayed in the same spot that he was, but it's still not as quick as he was in that Cup car. If you remember, race 2, he was dominant. I mean, he wasn't. Nobody could catch him. But now I guess Taurus Gudnavic is going to wait. You don't need to fuel save in these short races, but I guess it's still beneficial. Side by side right behind them, Justinas Lucas and Magano going side by side. Magano thinking that he can make the move and maybe start getting away. Let's see. Getting into the slipstream is Justinas Lucas.
Taurus Gudnavic just made that move side by side.
Oh, again side by side. So it's side by side, then one car, and then again side by side. But coming out of Schwedenkreuz into the braking zone, Gudnavic is going to probably make the move. Still not enough. They're still side by side, and now heading down into the foxhole. Someone is gonna have to lift.
Who's that gonna be? What you think?
I think it's going to be very tight, but I guess you don't have that speed in the Mazda, but it is Gudnavic who does lift. He is going to wait for Nims to come through. Justinas Lucas held on to P3, so nothing changes there. And I think everybody that was side by side kind of just stayed in position, because I think Matas Mendelis was side by side with Paulius Klimanskas, but that still ended up Klimanskas in 6th, Mendelis in 7th, so I guess it's easy to get side by side. It's very difficult to make the move if somebody closes the inside to the outside. Taurus Gudnavic just again. It's looking a little bit desperate. I don't really like to use that word, but it is looking a little bit desperate. I think it's too early to be desperate. You've still got a lap and a half where you can make the move much easier, but
yeah, but
yes, you can try to break the opponent, you know, break him down psychologically. But it is dangerous moves that you're making, and especially around the Nordschleife on the outside. If you go offline just a little bit and find a more slippery patch of asphalt, that's in the wall. There's no other choice.
So Lucas making some ground. He's 1.8 seconds behind Gudnavic, so maybe Gudnavic should start thinking about some strategy about how this race is going to evolve, and if he'll continue to push Jan Nims for the lead position, both of them will not be able to run the maximum times around this track, and that might give Justinas Lucas a chance. So if I would be Taurus Gudnavic right now, I would just settle down behind the fastest driver, or one of the fastest drivers around this racetrack, and try to build up some gap, and then maybe wait for the final lap and that long straight to make that move, which might be also a little bit risky, because Well, it's possible for a driver to make that move at the beginning of the straight and then lose back again to your opponent. So let's wait for that portion of the racetrack, which is not that far away, and we'll see which strategy will work the best for the drivers. Matas Mendel is running behind on this racetrack for quite some time. Matas Mendel is going for a move. Povilas Klimanskas was a driving instructor on the Nordschleife, and he knows this track all around. Matas Mendel is making some moves using that slipstream. Maybe this was a strategical move from Povilas Klimanskas, who just let Matas Mendelis through to try and chase him down, running down that long straight. Jan Nims made a gap of 0.7 seconds. So it looks like that this section of the racetrack suits Jan Nims a little bit better. Toros Gudnavicius was quite aggressive at the beginning. Now he's falling behind. Povilas Klimanskas looking into the inside, into that small carousel, which is not the best spot for overtaking. And I think he will settle behind Matas Mendelis, and we'll find out how the slipstream is in these little Mazdas.
Heading back to the leaders, it is 0.9 of a second. And now Toros Gudnavicius is going to have to be a bit quicker because he's now in trouble. I guess if he drops out of that kind of 1 second range, that's when you lose the slipstream. Jan Nims showed in qualifying he can be 2 seconds a lap quicker. Will Toros, while utilizing that slipstream, will he be able to keep up? But it is over a second now, just a bit, just about 1.1. But now is the point you start to struggle. Remember, race 1 winner will be sitting in 10th on the next grid. 10th is that magical spot held by number 9 of Mensaki. But that is still always up for grabs. And as you saw in the Porsche Cup races, 10th place was the golden spot. That's where you wanted to be, 9th or 10th on that front row for the race 2 start. That's how you can get some good positions. Toros Gudnavicius still a second back, so he's stabilized the gap at this point, but he's gonna struggle to get any closer, I can imagine. We'll see how it unfolds down the straight. Klimanskas has lost out a little bit to Mendelis. Mendelis 0.5 ahead. That's going to be a slipstreamable gap, let's say. That's what we'll call it for this race. But 2.3 seconds for Mendelis to catch up to Navicius, and that's going to be a more difficult task. 1.1 between the two leaders. Let's see what happens. He needs a mega exit for Toros to have any chance of catching up. I'm not even talking about taking a position off of him. Just catching up would be great. Well, the gap is not coming down, so he is outside of that slipstream zone. That kind of, well, it's not race over, but it's definitely not what he wanted. So he's going to be losing time all the way down the straight, well, at least holding steady the gap. I can see Mendelis and Klimanskas side by side, so Klimanskas not letting that position go. I guess he would have thought at some point that Mendelis is going to be quicker, or let's say much quicker, that he could just hold on to the back of him. But he is kind of doing that.
But it looks like, yeah, but it looks like Matas Mendelis had to lose the position to Povilas Klimanskas somewhere earlier before that straight, because he was already in front of Povilas Klimanskas, and Matas Mendelis taking a little bit too much of that curb. And these Mazdas don't like these big curbs because they are really tight, and they just lose grip, and you can see Povilas Klimanskas using it to his own advantage right away. This small mistake made by Matas Mendelis on that final chicane. Still side by side, Matas Mendelis not giving up, but the line was a little bit more preferable to Povilas Klimanskas, who is back to P6, and it looks like these two drivers will battle each other to the end of this race for the final lap, and this is the battle for P6. They are already 3 seconds behind Tadas Juknevičius. Matas Mendelis taking the inside on the Grand Prix circuit, and well, winning back that position. Both of the drivers wasting quite a lot of time. They are already 3.3 seconds behind Tadas Juknevičius, and there comes Bender. He's only 0.8 of a second behind these drivers, and Simon Speth is right on his tail. So a 2-car battle might become a 4-car battle towards the end of this race, with Mensati still holding that provisional pole position for that final race, and he's 4.6 seconds behind this battle, so he should not be in the mix in the battle for P6.
But I think they've given up trying to catch P5 at this point, because they're going hard and battling hard and harder than you kind of imagine. And now, exactly, they've got the front of Bender and Speth behind them, 0.4 and 0.2, so now it's a 4-car train. Now, I guess it's a decision between Klimanskas and Mendelis. Do they try to run away together, or do they fight, and now it's a 4-way fight? I don't know which is preferable for who, but I guess a 4-way fight would be more interesting. I think Mendelis just wants to get away, but not quick enough. Not showing the speed that he had in that Porsche Cup car. Jan Nims, by the way, 1.5 almost now ahead of Tadas Juknevičius. That's, well, I don't want to say locked in, but it's pretty much done for the front. I guess Tadas is going to hope that he can have a much better start in race 2. By the way, the gap's still 0.8 of a second. It's tiny from 6th to 9th. They're in the train all together. 10th? Well, that's the only chance of a battle is if Butvila starts catching up. But it is a 2.5 second gap that's been kind of increasing, at least the last few sectors, or the last few turns of the lap. So this is the only real battle, and I can see that was Bender making a move on Klimanskas. Klimanskas off into the grass and off into the wall. And, well, he's going to have to hope for a P10 now. He's going to be caught up by Mensaki. And I guess they just went side by side. And like I said, sometimes on the Nordschleife, if you go side by side and you're on the outside, you end up in the wall. So fighting for P9 and fighting for a front row. This could be actually quite beneficial for Klimanskas if he's just looking for a nice position instead of those championship points, but not going to be happy losing P7 and a chance at P6 in one single turn.
He might still get that 9th spot, which would give him a little bit more points and still a good starting position for the next race, because it looks like he's quite much faster than Mensaki. And well, he should be acting clever starting from now on, because Dainius Butvila is only 2.1 seconds behind this battle. Of course, if Povilas Klimanskas has a car which is not damaged, and well, if he will make a wrong move and waste a little bit too much of time, he might risk to lose that provisional pole position or the second position for the start of the next race. Well, and if he will finish 11th, this will be the position he'll have to enjoy for the second race. So he needs to think and be smart. Dainius Butvila is slightly gaining on these two drivers, because Mensaki started to defend against Povilas Klimanskas right now, and both of them looks to be going a little bit slower than they might be going. Quite big gaps ahead. It looks like O'Brien is right on the tail of Cabo, but this is the final lap of the race, of the first race, and it looks like the main battle is for P9 at this moment.
Well, the main battle is going to be if Dainius Butvila can hurry up a little bit, go a little bit faster, might just be able to challenge for pole position. And Mensaki, he's defending that place, and I don't think Klemanskas wants that. It looks like he's just trying to follow him because he knows after the incident he doesn't have the straight line speed he needs, but no, to the outside. Well, inside, that turns to the outside onto the next turn, but can he outbrake him? Oh, that's very tight, and he goes quite wide and very close to that outside curb. Now we'll see how much actual damage he's got on that car. He does get in front, but now Butvila at 0.8. That is slipstream range. If they keep on fighting, this is a three-way fight for pole position, well, the front row. You just don't want to be 11th. That's the main thing. You don't want to be 11th. That's probably the worst place you can be finishing this race and then starting the next race.
Yes, indeed, and Dainus Butvila knows that, and it's already 0.8 of a second, and he needs to be quite focused right now, trying to make the best that he can out of it, and he sees the two guys in front of him struggling and running really slow, and well, you don't know how this one's going to end, and this one is a really important battle because well, the pole position is something much bigger than P11 for the second race. I'm wondering what's going through the head of Povilas Klimanskas, who was battling for P6 half a lap ago, maybe a little bit more, when he lost it while battling with Bender. And Speth is coming a little bit closer to Bender, and he might get that slipstream down the long straight towards the end of the lap, approaching the final corner. Povilas Klimanskas might playing it a little bit safe, maybe. No, he's sending it and going side by side, and I think this one's going to work. Clever move by Povilas Klimanskas, and he closes the door, and I think he'll be safe with this completed move. So that puts Mensaki back to pole position for the next round, but it puts Dainus Butvila right on the tail of Mensaki, the driver from Italia. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name right.
The real question now is, can he kind of hold on in that slipstream range? I think he's struggling, and I think Klimanskas just waited for that correct time to make the move, when he knew there was a row of corners coming up, because he's definitely quicker. Mensaki did struggle quite a bit in before, and he was losing time to the guys in front. Looks like just about Klimanskas is going to get out of that slipstream range. So now this is the battle. We've got two battles, actually. It's Speth versus Bender. That's 0.1 of a second. And then you've got the battle for pole in race 2. That's going to be between Butvila and Mensaki. Nobody wants to finish 11th.
Yeah.
I remind you, P10, that's the pole position for race 2. We've got the whole top 10 inverted, so Jan Nims would be starting last. But Jan Nims, we kind of forgot about him a little bit. He's coming up to the end of the lap, well, depending on where you count the lap from, but he's coming onto the Dottingoa, and he'll have just the final few chicanes to navigate. Flawless today. Nothing much more could be said. It's going to be a lot more interesting what he does in the second race. I don't think he has any BOP penalties applied to him, so that's quite lucky for him. So 2.8 seconds, well, easy? I don't want to say easy, but he makes it look easy. Now this is the battle for P7, and that's Bender versus Speth. Side by side down the straight still. We're going to come back to that battle for P10 in a moment, but just want to watch what happens here. Guess not as significant a position as that one, but Dainus Butvila 0.1, and he's getting very close. And now this is the battle. To the outside he goes. Outside is going to be brave, but if he's got the overspeed down the straight, it's all going to depend on Klimanskas if he can move out to the right and give some slipstream to Butvila. Oh, they're going to come in still side by side. I think Jan Nims is about to cross the line, but we have to stay with this. It's still side by side. Jan Nims just crossed the line, and congrats, a win for him, but still side by side. This is for pole position for the next race. Still side by side.
Oh, Dainus Butvila taking
just
that
about
position.
They're still coming out of the onto the straight. This can still go to anyone. Still side by side, pushing him to the wall. Still pushing, still pushing. 0.1, 0.00 across the line.
Nice finish, but it looks like Mensaki got that position. Who is that driver who got the 10th place? No, Danius Butvila. He got that position.
0.02 of a second. So that's 0.020021 actually that he gets P10. Well, I guess that's the move you have to make at the very, very end of the straight.
Beautiful driving, but both of the drivers respect to each other, leaving just enough of room to not crash out, and racing, dragging right till the finish line. And I think this battle was the battle of the first race. And well, I'm already eager to see how the second race will pan out after the top 10 drivers will start in a reversed order. So let's run fast through the finishing order of the race, of the first race.
Just a funny thing I wanted to mention right before we head into that results screen. If Danius Butvila, if Povilas Klimanskas wouldn't have had that incident, Mensaki would have started on pole. Because Danius Butvila was over 2 seconds behind and not really within that shot to overtake. So pretty much what happened to Povilas, who, well, he did lose 2 places, not the end of the world, but that's going to put him on the front row for the next race. That incident kind of spiraled and it had an effect on the rest of the field. Yes, Danius Butvila now on pole, and by the way, Spef did finish in front of Bender. That was 0.5 of a gap there. But here we go. Jan Nims for AOR Racing Team. He finishes in P1, 2.8 seconds ahead, and fastest lap of a 9-minute 55.4. I think that's just a little bit quicker than what he did in qualifying, actually. P2 for Toras Gudnavicius. He keeps his place, and Justinas Lukas, after starting 4th, finishes 3rd. Mangano in P4 after starting 3rd. Tadas Gudnavicius holds his place in 5th for Beaver Grease Racing, and 6th for Matas Mendes, jumping up from 7th. Simon Spef in 7th, jumping up from 10th. That's one of the bigger gainers. Alessio Bender in 8th, starting from 9th. Povilas Klimanskas finishes 9th after starting 6th after that incident that we saw. Danius Butvila, one of probably the biggest recovery we've seen so far, at least looking at the results. He finishes in 10th place ahead of Mensaki. Looking for the rest of the grid, Cabo actually from P21 to P12. That's a recovery that we missed somehow. Then we've got Leo O'Brien, Thomas, then we've got Stravinskas, then we've got Espina Malakauskas in 19th, Poshabal in Malakauskas in 17th, Poshabal in 18th, 19th for Kishoni, Lamas in 20th, Ahmed in 21st, 22nd for Abdel Hadi, 23rd for Espin, and they he did complete something, and he is in 24th. Frank did not start the race. So that's your order for the current race. We're going to shortly go into an ad break to check out what World Sim Series has to offer, and we'll be back with race 2 with Danius Butvila and Povilas Klimanskas on the front row. And welcome back to the Nordschleife. We're just about ready to get going. Linus Butula on pole position with Paulius Klimanskas, Alessio Bender, Simon Speff, Matas Mendelis, Alessio Ignatius, Mangano in 7th, Soldugas in 8th, Ignatius in 9th, Jan Nims in 10th. Well, Jan Nims, we've seen him make incredible recoveries in the Porsche Caymans. Let's see what he can do in the MX-5s.
Bring it on.
I guess the MX-5 showed that maybe they're not as easy to overtake as we initially thought. Coming to the lights now. Going to take the lead down into turn 1. This turn 1 is going to be crucial. The GP track is going to be crucial, and they're away.
Good start by Linus Butula.
Very good start. It is still a little bit funny after seeing the Porsche Cup cars rocket off the line. The MX-5s look a lot more civil, but fantastic start by Butula, who holds on to the lead.
Oh, Toros Gunavicius, if you would change that camera, I think he's taking that inside line, which is a little bit dangerous, but he made already some good positions. He's up to 6th, and we have a crash between Justin Saldukas and Gnavicius. Nims up to P7, Toros up to P6. Great start, and actually it's a little bit shame. I'm lucky. I'm glad for the guys who made a good start and good amount of positions at the first corners, but it makes the race a little bit less interesting, I assume, because our fastest drivers are already in the middle of the top 10 places. Klimanskas around the outside.
Very, very nice, and if he can just about hold on to it, and he's coming up to that Schumacher S, it is a difficult section to get right just about. So now Klimanskas has the goal of holding on to the lead until they get to the Nordschleife. That's when you start to make the moves.
Speth and Bender battling again. Speth is right behind Bender, and we have 6 cars in the group of 2x2. Toros Gunavicius and Jan Nims already battling each other, and it looks like Jan Nims has the line to take that spot away from Toros Gunavicius. When, well, remembering the first race, that should be more than enough for Jan Nims to finish ahead his main rival. Of course, he will have 5 cars ahead of him, and things might change while Toros Gunavicius doesn't give up, but will he back off? No, he was left just enough of room, but well, he still had to lift off that throttle, and now he has to defend from Mangano, while Jan Nims is looking to the inside of Matas Mendelis and covering off Toros Gunavicius, and it's a little bit more tight than it was in the first race. Gunavicius lost the position to Mangano, so he's down to P8, while when they entered the Nordschleife part of the circuit, Toros Gunavicius. Was that Toros Gunavicius? No, I think that was the other Dream to Drive car. Was not
now, if I'm Toros Gunavicius, I'm trying to somehow tell Matas Mendelis to please hold him back. Oh, grass, that's not gonna help. And trying to catch, and somebody follows right behind. It is Klimanskas 0.5 of a second ahead of Butula now, so he's kept that lead quite nicely, and the top 4, let's say, has settled into a rhythm. So now the question is, how long can Mendelis hold on Nims? And Mendelis has got the slipstream to Speff, so that means Nims is going to have a more difficult time trying to pass him, because if you've already got the slipstream, he doesn't open that middle, because if he opens that middle, he's going to make it free wide, and free wide into Schwedenkreuz is not going to work. No, too wide, trying to take it around the outside at Schwedenkreuz. That is very brave, but gets the move done. Outside obviously doesn't have that massive bump, but it is still the outside, and somebody in the wall. I think that is Justin Saldukas in the wall again.
I think Leo O'Brien was involved in that also.
Jan Nims got through on Matas Mendelis. When did that happen?
Gunavicius also is right behind Jan Nims, so good recovery by Toros Gunavicius. He was down to P8, and Matas Mendelis is running. I think Matas Mendelis, he collected someone else with him, I believe, or just missed slightly.
Simon Speff. No.
Yeah, I think Simon Speth, they all were battling in one group, and Matas Mendelis lost control, and I think he collected Simon Speth with him.
Well, that makes the situation much easier for Jan Nims and Thoras Gudnavičius. They're now up into P4 and P5, 3 seconds behind the lead.
And still that's one.
Well, yeah, yes, they're gonna have to get through these guys, and I don't think Thoras Gudnavičius will make it easy on them, but I just can't see them defending this. They have to work together now. So Dainius Butvila and Povilas Klimanskas would have to pretty much bump draft each other oval style around the whole lap to have any chance of holding on to this. I'm not saying they're bad drivers, but just looking at the massive pace difference in race 1, just as a reference, Povilas Klimanskas, his best lap, obviously while fighting other cars, 10 minutes 11.0, Tim's 9 minutes 55.4. It's not that representative, but just to understand, Dainius Butvila had a 10:04.3, so the gaps are big between the drivers. So now they're gonna have to work with some strategy here. Jan Nims.
Oh, and he got him. And it looks like, yeah, Bender. It looked like he didn't battle actually those faster guys. Not sure if he wasn't up to this because, well, he knows that the pace difference is huge. And look, he's making no trouble, not for Jan Nims and not for Thoras Gudnavičius, and I think he's taking the position to defend that place against Mangano and Juknavičius. Or maybe he's just having...
Side. I think he just made a bit of a mistake. Oh, touching down the straights. Oh, that's not something you see often, especially at this place in the Nordschleife. Coming down into the mud curve, they're going to still be side by side. I don't think either of them is going to lift, at least not from these two, to the outside, and he stays to the outside just about. He might just hold on. He had a little bit more momentum coming out of mud curve. He gets the move done, keeps his place. Alessio Bender, very, very aggressive. Thoras Gudnavičius, he's close. He's 0.7. I think he's going to lose it again. Dainius Butvila 0.7 behind Povilas Klimanskas. If Dainius Butvila wants to continue something, he needs to catch up. Jan Nims destroying the lap. 0.9 now. We just saw it in 2 seconds, wasn't it?
It was.
2 proper quarters ago. Down to 0.8. Well, Thoras Gudnavičius with rocket boosters on it now. I guess the only help for him here would be if Dainius Butvila will hold up Jan Nims, because Jan Nims might catch him in this section. I think he will. This will be the chance for Thoras Gudnavičius to close that gap down, because this is not a section of the circuit you might be making those overtaking moves. You don't have that many overtaking opportunities until you reach the Nottingham. Now Jan Nims is on the tail of Dainius Butvila. This is the chance for Thoras Gudnavičius to close up. If he can close up and take all 2 of them down to Nottingham, he might just be able to hold on to something.
Oh, Dainius Butvila running a little bit wide onto those high curves and still is able to hold on to that position against Jan Nims, and this is what Thoras Gudnavičius really needs right now. And he's already only 0.5 of a second behind this battle. Jan Nims might become a little bit too optimistic right now. What you think? He might go for a move which
he just has to wait. There's no other option here. He's trying to take it to the outside. No way he's gonna do it around the outside here. They touch.
And he knows that he needs to do that, and he is taking those risks because he sees Thoras Gudnavičius right on the tail, and he doesn't want to lose to that to Thoras Gudnavičius right now. And well, he knows that Dainius Butvila is quite an experienced driver, and he didn't cause too much trouble, so it was worth the risk for the German driver. Of course, he lost a little bit of time, but well, he's faster on pure pace against Thoras Gudnavičius, so I think, well, he calculated all this risk quite nicely. Now 2 seconds behind Povilas Klimanskas, so they really lost a little bit of time in this battle, but well, we're still not in the middle of that race. There's still plenty of time, so I think it was a really nice and clever move by Jan Nimz, though it might change down this long Dödinger straight, and Toras Gudnavic is running around the outside, and he has that speed advantage. The Jan Nimz is already behind Toras Gudnavic, and look at that amount of Mazdas crawling down this long straight. What's the maximum speed right now?
Pretty wide, by the way, for P5 that was. We can jump on board with Jan Nimz, who's still side by side. Don't think we can see the top speed. I think that car is just about reaching 200 kilometers per hour. I don't know if the panels are gonna fall off the Mazda if it's going that fast, but still side by side.
It's dangerous.
Can Toras hold on? No, he's gonna wait. He's gonna try turn one again. What I was afraid of for Jan Nimz was that he had nobody to catch down the straight, and I thought Toras Gudnavic would just easily do it. I guess something that's coming into effect here as well is the side draft. Once you get next to another car, you kind of get pulled along with it, and maybe the speed difference isn't big enough. The speed difference generated by these cars isn't big enough to actually complete that move. So Toras Gudnavic just put 4 of a second. It's gonna be difficult.
It is going to be difficult, though there is still one car ahead of these two fastest drivers of this race, so there's still some chance for Toras Gudnavic, and he played it really nicely. He backed off it on the final moments, and he didn't want to risk this race. It's better to finish second, especially knowing that Jan Nimz had a bad race 2 weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks? Yeah, I think it was 2 weeks ago. And well, Toras knows that he needs to have a finish rather than crashing out himself and his rival. Dainus Butvilas running side by side with Mangano, I believe, around the original, around the Grand Prix version of the racetrack, side by side, and Dainus Butvilas.
Oh, that is very, very impressive. Oh, and they touch. Jan Nimz to the outside. Toras Gudnavic just comes through. That was very, very aggressive. And something interesting that I saw even in the last race, Toras Gudnavic just looked very, very impressive in that GP course. And I guess this is why he can make the move now. And, well, holds
He will let him through. He will, yes.
Oh.
It's he didn't want to do that, but look at the background. There's someone off the track. I think that's Cabo. The Leo Bryan.
Is it Mendes?
No, it wasn't. It's Dainus Butvilas. It was Dainus Butvilas in the wall. Yeah, it was.
Oh, and that's a very, very destroyed MX5. Somebody else might go in the wall in the moment now. You know, depending on Klemanska's pace, it could be that Gudnavic is taking out Nimz, or at least having that incident and letting him through again, could actually be why Klemanska's holds on to a better spot. I think he's safe in a podium position. At least it looks like to me he's safe in P3. But he's gonna want to win today.
He has a chance. He does have a chance, especially while both of the drivers behind him are in such a battle. Of course, the weaker part of Toras Gudnavic is the Nordschleife section, but well, at least by looking at the first and the second race, I think it's the second part of the Nordschleife circuit where Jan Nimz just shines around that track, and Toras Gudnavic just can match the pace at the first section of the racetrack, and here he comes again. And this is the best news for Povilas Klemanskis, though he already lost 0.6 of a second, and the gap is now down to 1.2, but while these two continue battling each other, they just might give that win away for Povilas Klemanskis. Oh, and another touch.
Oh, yeah, Nimz almost turned him because Toras Gudnavic just sat on the brakes on the apex, trying to not let Jan Nimz cross, and now this really changes up the situation. So depending on the speed of Povilas Klemanskis, I think we're going to come into the final section of the track where, again, it's difficult to overtake. I think we're going to come in with an interesting order, and if Povilas Klemanskis stays in front, whatever happens between these two that's going to give a big chance to Povilas and a very big chance to Toras. I think Jan Nims needs to get past these guys. The longer he stays behind Klimanskas or Gudnavicius, the more at risk of not making it into P1 he is. A double win would be the first one of the season. Well, we only had one other event, but a double win would be very impressive and would show his competitors, would scare his competitors for sure. And I think he's kind of doing it conservative. Losing a little bit of time, maybe a little bit of damage as well from the incident that they had before. And Povilas Klimanskas running with a clean car. This is advantage Klimanskas at the moment.
But he's still slower. The two guys battling each other are still gaining on Povilas Klimanskas, and I think as soon as we'll enter the second part of the Nordschleife circuit, the gap will still go to... it will disappear eventually, and it's already well beneath 1 second. Of course, the track is coming to an end, and it's beginning to be shorter and shorter distance before we see the finish line. And you can see by the lines of Povilas Klimanskas that he's doing his best, and he's using all the width of the racetrack, but still going slightly slower than these two incredibly fast drivers behind him. But he knows his way around. He knows this circuit in and out. He knows it from driving on the real tarmac to driving it in the virtual environment. Still maybe not up with the pace of the two fast drivers behind, but he knows that this is his chance, and he knows that he needs to run flawlessly. Maybe looking into the mirror time to time, hoping that the two drivers behind him will begin the battle that they had in... I think Toras Gudnavicius just overslept the move by Jan Nims, or, well, maybe he let him through.
Well, it would be smart to not be the lead car coming onto the Dottinghoa. What's going to happen now is if Klimanskas can hold on for these next few turns, I would like to say that Toras Gudnavicius is playing 3D chess here, because what he's doing now is he's slowing down Jan Nims, and they touch again. Wow, I think he's trying to send himself into the wall, trying to touch like that on the outside. But what he's doing now is he's playing 3D chess, and well, if you know from Formula One, you've got drivers like Alonso and Hamilton and Vettel who kind of play. They drive their own race and they kind of play with other people's races. So now what he's done is that he's held up Jan Nims. Jan Nims normally should not be able to overtake in this section, the section that he is the quickest on track, and this will be advantage Gudnavicius because he's going to be the final car in a 3-car train, whoever is in front of that train. But I think Jan Nims, he's going to struggle getting past Klimanskas, because Klimanskas is going to want to hold on to that position as well, because he knows that if these two crash into each other, well, he's got a free win.
But Toras Gudnavicius began struggling a lot, and he's already 0.6 of a second behind Jan Nims, who is trying to gain on Povilas Klimanskas. Maybe fuel? Maybe Toras Gudnavicius is running a little bit conservative on fuel, or is it just a section of the racetrack where Toras Gudnavicius is not that comfortable? And similar to Danish Butvilla, Povilas Klimanskas running a little bit too wide and taking too much of curb on the outside. And this is giving a chance for Jan Nims.
One thing you have in these cars, which you don't have in the faster ones, that's momentum. And I think what Toras Gudnavicius is trying to do, he's made a gap, and if Jan Nims is going to try and make the move to the outside here again, like he did last time, Toras Gudnavicius has got the momentum to close down on these two, but maybe he's just not close enough. Maybe he's dropped back a little bit too far. And what will Klimanskas do? Will he try to fight this move and around the outside? I don't think he's going to hold it. Now he needs to stay behind, and Toras Gudnavicius has to wait. If he makes a move, he's going to ruin his chances.
And he's going for a move into that small carousel, and I think he made that done, but well, he didn't make it. So that's it. That's it. I think Jan Nims is already quite safe for the win of the second race. As you mentioned before.
1.1 seconds.
That's it?
Yeah, pretty much done. It's only going to be for P2 between Gudnavicius and Klimanskas. Can Klimanskas hold on into that final section? He doesn't have the slipstream from the car ahead. Gudnavicius to the outside. A move he tried to make last lap. It wasn't enough last lap. To the right behind goes Klimanskas. He's going to try to utilize that slipstream and come back at him. Look at how close they're running. I think Gudnavicius just has a little bit of damage on his car. To the outside, Klimanskas now. So they're just switching places down the straight. That's that side draft coming in now. They've got very, very similar speed. It's not going to be enough. He's going to try and make that move down the straight. Leo Bryan, Justinas Soldukas, and Matis Mendeles are 3 wide down the straight, by the way, but we want to be watching this, and we want to be seeing a little bit of a touch there. But Jan Nims comes through the final turn to take the second win of the evening and makes it a double for him and the AOR team. And it is P2 for Toras Gudnavicius and P3 for Povilas Klimanskas, who started second. So AOR Racing Team and Jan Nims win the race. There is still a battle going on, 3 wide down the straight. Justinas Soldukas takes P8, P9 for Leo Bryan. Matas Mendel is only 10th. He was, I think, he was in the wall at some point. Denis Butvila as well. He was in the wall and he only manages to finish 17th. I guess depending on the penalty for Espina ahead. I think Espina, I'm not sure where he's going to drop down to, but anyway, it is 17 for Denis Butvila. Somebody crossed the line in reverse. I guess you can do that if you've got a big enough lead, but yeah, Toras Gudnavicius, well, he couldn't strategize his win, and well, maybe next time. And next time, let me remind you, we're going to be heading, well, back to the Nordschleife, but this time in the Cupra TCRs, another car that really loves the slipstream. They're a little bit quicker, so we'll see higher speed battles, but it is going to be, I believe, the only front-wheel drive car of the series, if I'm not mistaken. And then we'll be heading on to round 4 with the BMW Z4 GT3, the fastest car of the series. Then the BMW M235 Cup, a car very popular around the Nordschleife, and finishing off the season in the BMW E30 DTM, probably the most difficult race of the season that we'll see. But as the race has finished, we can have a look at the results. And it is, as we said, Jan Nims taking the win ahead of Toras Gudnavicius, Povilas Klimanskas, and Ganon for 5th for Gudnavicius, 6th for Cabo, 7 for Mensakis, 8 for Soldukas. He might be a little bit disappointed with that. Leo Bryan finishes in 9th, 10th for Matas Mendeles, 11th for Adam Kashoni, 12th for Thomas, 13th for Poshoval. Bender finishes in 14th. Disappointing for him as well. Started from 3rd on the grid. Malakauskas in 15th, 16th for Espina, 17th for Butvila. He's going to be even more disappointed with that, starting on pole, finishing 17th. Didn't capitalize on that pole position that was handed to him on a platter in race 1. Stravinskas in 18th, Abdelhadi 19th, Ahmed in 20th, Lamas in 21st, Espin 22nd, 23rd for Frank, and Simon Speff finishing in 24th, retiring at the end of lap 1.
Good race.
That's interesting races. Maybe expected a little bit more action from these MX-5s, but I think the faster TCRs are going to provide a show as well. That's it from us tonight. Tune in 2 weeks' time to the RingFreaks Championship. These drivers battling for coupons to drive the RingFreaks cars on the real Nürburgring. And this Sunday, we've got the Monza 6 hours on the Assetto Corsa Competizione platform. Tune in to that. as well. It's good night from me. Lorinas, any final words?
Yeah, good night from me, and I'm already eager on the race of Sunday, 6 hours of Monza, so I hope you will tune in to take a good look at that race with GT3 cars on the Assetto Corsa Competizione platform, which always looks stunning. So hopefully it's going to be a hot battle. We have a lot of participants registered, by the way, for that race. I think that's the biggest grid that ACC on World Sim Series has seen. So yeah, just tune in on Sunday and we will have more great racing.
See you on Sunday.